Hi BookTube, I'm here with my Friday reads. So because I missed last week, I'm just gonna go through what I read last week. That was Myst, Book of Atris by Rob and Rand Miller and David Wingrove. So this is based on the game Myst. It's kind of like the prequel to it. And it's about a family who is the last of their people. We have the mother, the son, and the grandson. And the special thing about their people, the Danae, is that they're able to create books that can link to other worlds and then affect those worlds with their writing. And it's really interesting. It was really interesting. And you can read it without having played the games either, because it works as a prequel, and not a lot is referenced except for the Island of Myst, of course. And let me just tell you, the villain in this book, I hated him so much, and I'm so happy with his punishment, which was to be trapped on one of the worlds that he created without any books. I was just like, this is awesome. He's just so, like, such an arrogant character, and that's the one trait I hate in people's arrogance. I really hate arrogance. So yeah, I was really happy with how he was punished. Then I read Dawn by Octavia Butler, and I have a copy of that here. Took off the dust jacket. It's the first book in the Xenogenesis series by Octavia Butler. So this is about aliens rescuing humans after the Cold War goes hot and there's nuclear war. And they're willing to help them rebuild the human population, with the stipulation that the aliens are allowed to interbreed with the humans, making them both, in the aliens' opinions, better species. What I really liked about this is that it really concentrated on the philosophical implications of what it means to be human. So there wasn't a lot of action, it was a lot of thinking, and I thought that was really cool. And the aliens, at first it was hard for me to kind of picture them, but I eventually settled on, like, Cousin It meets the Na'vi from Avatar, meet the Wraith from Stargate Atlantis, and that, like, everything's kind of organic and grown and they're trying to interfere with humanity type thing. So that's how I kind of pictured them in my mind. It is so humid in here. There's like a fog over my AC's in the other room. It's just really hot in here, so I apologize for, like, the fog that's over me right now. And what I'm currently reading, I'm still reading Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson, the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I'm really enjoying this. It's a story of a battle between an empire and the last free city, and all the players. And there's wizards and soldiers and assassins and thieves and gods and, like, regular people. I really like that they have these gods whose only goal is to, like, cause chaos and randomness. So they'll randomly resurrect someone or prevent someone from dying, or, you know, do different things. And it's all about, eventually gets to be about chance and luck and all these random things. The character in here, Croup, is one of my all-time favorite characters. He's really hard to pinpoint at first because you're like, what is going on? And then you realize that he's dreaming. So you don't know what to take of if him is true or not true. I think he's a wizard who fences stolen goods. And he has these strange, almost lucid dreams where he talks to his personality and gods, and he also talks in the third person. So he's like, Croup thinks this and Croup does that. It's just he's really entertaining to read. I also like the magic system in this book, because they draw power from these things called warrens, which are interwoven places into the physical world. And you can enter into the warrens, or you can just open them and draw the power from them. And you can also travel through them. It kind of reminds me of Teleron Riyadh from the Wheel of Time series, if you are familiar with that. Except each wizard or mage or whatever they're called, because they're all called something different, have a different version of their warren. So it's pretty cool. I'm also reading The Dishonest Church, which is about the divide between the popular conservative Christianity and liberal academic Christianity. It's about how pastors are taught about the social cultural aspects of the Bible. Was written and put together like the Gospels were written after the letters of Paul in response to some of his ideas, in reaction, in argument against them, or that the rules in Leviticus are more complicated than just straightforward we think, i.e. some were only applied to the priest class, some were only created to rebuild the population, some were more about cleanliness than about, the holiness of certain animals or not. But they don't share this information with their congregation for a multitude of reasons they talks about. But this has led to people who read the Bible without supervision, which is, I don't know how people... That's a whole other issue I'll talk about some other time. For people who just read the Bible however they want to read it, and who search and believe in science, know how to work Google, and who leave the church, if not necessarily the faith. And we end up with kind of like the fundamentalists who are afraid of challenge and change, and they are what people think of when they think of Christianity, and it shouldn't be. Because if you look at the tradition of the Bible, if you're so keen on tradition, it is always going through change. It's always went through change, and some of the dogma and tenets of the faith have evolved over years, and it should continue to change as the laity becomes more educated and eventually distrustful of pastors who aren't sharing their knowledge. And I'm really, really liking a lot of his ideas in here. I'm also reading Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. It's this book here. It's about a pastor from South Africa who goes to Johannesburg to search for a son in the 1940s. It's about the building of the shantytown in Johannesburg, about the fight against apartheid on both a personal level and on the federal level, protesting and doing things to help change. It's also about the way apartheid affects crime and the breaking of the tribe and family. The way it's told is really quite neat because he switches perspectives all the time. And there are parts that are in the second perspective, as in you this, you that. It's really cool because he's like talking to you as if you're experiencing it, and you're not, but well, at least I'm not, because I'm a white person in Canada in the 21st century, not experiencing apartheid, but it helps you kind of pitch you in that place, if you know what I mean. And there's a chapter also where there's a bunch of different conversations happening, so you get a paragraph of one and then a paragraph of another, and then you go back to the first one and then there's a third one, and that is one of my favorite writing devices to encounter in books. I really love that. And it's also really cool because it comes with this definition and pronunciation guide for non-English words, because he uses words from Zulu and Afrikaans and all the other different languages that they have in South Africa. And lastly, I'm reading The Painted Bird by Jerzy Kosinski. I'm going to show you the back too, because there's a picture of him there. And this is astounding. This is about a boy who is dark-haired, olive-skinned, hook-nosed. He looks like a gypsy or a Jew in Eastern Europe during the Holocaust. And he's wandering from village to village at this time. His parents sent him away from the big city to try and, keep him safe. Whether that's successful is a whole other story, but, well, it's this story, actually. It's mostly about how horrible people are, and how horrendous their superstitions and their prejudices are, and how they use this boy, this young, he's literally 5 years old at the beginning of the book, and he's 10 at halfway through, and the horrible things that happen to him are just astounding. But they use this young boy as a scapegoat for all their problems, and it's about how they blame him when it's really their own actions and their own beliefs that are leading to their downfalls. It's really quite graphic and disheartening to read. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking about my grandfather. He went through something similar. He wasn't very keen talking about his experiences, but he was Ukrainian and witnessed his parents being shot when he was 7 years old in front of him. Then went to go live with his grandmother, and eventually left when he was 12 years old, and headed from Poland at that time west in Europe during World War II. He was actually caught by the Germans in France and put into forced labor on a farm, much like Kosinski is often done here. And eventually, also like Kosinski, he worked his way across West Europe to make his way to the Americas. So Kosinski ended up in the States, and my Opa ended up in Canada. That's the name of the country I live in, right? And I said Opa. Yes, he ended up marrying a German, and we called him Oma and Opa. So yeah, it's really hard to read at times, but also important to read, I think, at the same time. So this video is incredibly long. I apologize. That's what I'm reading this weekend. Thank you for watching.